Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I have a bunch of writing stuff I need to get done. I'm currently on the second round of structural edits for my novel Theodora's Tea Shop, which is a 1920s inspired atmospheric adult fantasy novel. It's coming out next year on July 28th. So today I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to be having a bit of a day in my life vlog. It's a cozy rainy day here in Adelaide and I wanted to get my day started and to begin this vlog in the quiet of the morning before my puppy is awake, before my partner is awake. So I have been doing the structural edit on Theodora's Tea Shop for the last 3 weeks, and for those exact 3 weeks I got quite sick. Now if you watched my last vlog, I think I mentioned in the voiceover that I ended up coming down with a throat infection. That turned into a secondary infection and now here I am, all done with the antibiotics. I'm better, but for some annoying reason you can just still hear some weakness in my voice, so I'm sorry about that. First, before I get into my day, let's grab some breakfast, we can grab some tea. So in today's writing vlog, I wanted to have a chat about a few topics that are very close to my heart: creative trauma, rejection, and chasing your dreams. Now I'll dive into the creative trauma part in detail later, but for now let's speak about the other two. There is not a creative person alive who has never faced rejection. I'm still working out the best way to handle rejection on my work. I think I'll be working that out until the day that I die. And there was a moment during the submission process for Theodora's Tea Shop where I particularly did think about giving up entirely. Not on writing, because that's sewn into my DNA, I'm never going to stop writing, but on pursuing traditional publication. And I've also had this interesting perception from some people that because I have a YouTube channel, for some reason that makes me immune to rejection. I promise you it does not. In the past year alone, I've gotten so many rejections on writers' residencies, short form pieces, pitches. I've had people reject me, I think specifically because I have a YouTube channel, because I don't come across as literary enough. My novel, Theodora's Tea Shop, was rejected by a number of agents and publishers, and you guys all watched that journey through the various vlogs that I uploaded, but that novel did also go on to sell at an international auction. So does that last bit of success negate all of the pain of the decade plus of rejection? Not even a tiny bit. But I think the thing that has helped me the most is accepting that if the story is good enough, it will find the audience it needs, and accepting that I can't control this. All I can control is the work in front of me. All I can do is make something that I like. That work is not lost, and that time was not for nothing. The rejection doesn't take away from me. So in the endeavor to keep chasing your dreams anyway, I think that this is the very best thing I've learned on the topic of rejection, or even on the topic of grief or heartbreak or really any negative visceral experience. Yes, that thing was bad. Yes, it hurt. And what did I get out of it? Because we get something even out of our very worst experiences, whether that's learning or compassion or context or dark stories to tell our friends a little bit too loudly at cafes. The way I like to look at rejection is not necessarily as a failure, not as a theft of time or effort, not as an embarrassment, but as an essential part of the creative process, as an opportunity to learn, as something I get something out of. It's an opportunity to grow, and it's also a fundamental marker that I'm getting closer and closer to achieving my goals. So now that I have a novel coming out next year, I'm not suddenly immune to rejection. Rejection is going to keep hitting me, and it's going to keep hitting you, and that is absolutely fine. During the making of my breakfast, a very sleepy puppy has now woken up. Basically, the moment I started round 2 of the structural edit, I got really sick and I had to push back the deadline, which is not something I like to do. I never push back my deadlines, and I've just been really stressed trying to get everything done because I've had to spend the last few weeks pushing through like the fugue state of my brain, the brain fog, all of it. What are you doing? It's just been incredibly stressful, and it's kind of coincided with Tyler going away. So my partner Tyler, who's a game developer, he's currently working on a really fun retro football game called Project Footy. So basically coinciding with my sickness was him going off to PAX, which is a convention in Melbourne, and then going off to South by Southwest Sydney. And so I was sick on my own here with Mabel trying to do my edits, and honestly, it was not a fantastic time. Thank goodness I'm almost done on round 2 of the structural edit, which is what I'm going to be working on today. It's this kind of like really fiddly last few bits and pieces of character work, of just making sure the magic system is really clear, but we're almost there, and that's what I'm going to be working on today. And essentially I just want to find some calm and peace amongst the stress. So I'm going to sit here with my puppy, who's suddenly gotten very playful. I've rebrewed some tea. I'm all ready for the day. I will admit I quickly fixed my hair because I got rained on. I'm just about ready to get started with my workday, which means I want to find a few minutes of calm so that my brain can be ready to come to the page to do the very best that I can with all of the creative work that I have to do today, which brings me to the sponsor of this video, which is Headspace. If you've watched my channel for a long time, you'll know that I have historically loved Headspace for so many years. Headspace is the everyday mental health app that's proven to help. It can help with stress, it can help with sleep, and what I've been using it for years is meditation. I'm a person whose thoughts constantly run away, and Headspace has been incredibly helpful throughout the years in helping me find some peace and find some calm. I love that there's Headspace audios for sleep, for meditation, for movement, for focus. There are specific guided programs you can do, such as cognitive behavioral therapy for mood and anxiety, finding your best sleep, managing stress. Headspace has so many auditory resources available to help you find your best brain and to help you be creative. For someone who has such a busy, scattered brain as I do, Headspace has helped me so much over the course of the past 10 years. Basically, if I'm frazzled, if I'm stressed, if I can't concentrate, I know I'm not going to get as good creative output out of my brain. And so sitting down with Headspace for a few minutes, doing a little bit of mindfulness, listening to a meditation really helps me. So today I think I'm actually going to start the letting go of stress course. There are so many different voices you can choose from. I'm going to pick Andy though, because that's what I have always used. So I'm going to begin this course. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes doing this meditation, and I like to do this just in our bedroom, sitting cross-legged on the floor with my headphones in. This is the most comfortable way for me to do this, but I also like listening to the short meditations at my desk. I've also really enjoyed listening to the walking meditations as well. I love using Headspace. It's helped me so much through my life, through my journey of learning how to navigate all of the fun brain stuff. Just 10 days of Headspace is proven to decrease stress and increase happiness. And by using my link in the description down below or scanning the QR code on the screen, you can try it out entirely for free for 60 days. Check it out and see how Headspace might be helpful for you. It is now time for me to get to work for the day, so I'm going to bring up draft 8.1 of Theodora's tea shop. Even I feel like with my videos bouncing back and forth between Spiggleton and Tea Shop, I feel this kind of whiplash and dissonance between those two projects. A few really fun and exciting things have been going on with Theodora's Tea Shop. We've started talking about the map that's going to be in the book. We started talking about the cover, which I think is hopefully going to be announced before the end of the year. I'm not 100% sure on specific timelines, but I think it'll be before the end of the year. So things are moving. It's really exciting. But yeah, I'm currently on draft 8.1. For this second round of structural edits, I'm basically just working with the Australian editor, and we're just fixing those nitpicky little things. And so these aren't big changes, but it takes a long time, and it's very fiddly, and it requires a lot of concentration, because if you want to just ever so slightly tweak someone's character arc, you don't want to put in a very small change or like a single sentence that's going to break something that happened 100 pages before. So it's all fine. It's just very fiddly. I'm currently on chapter 37 of 46 chapters, technically more than 46. Hopefully I can get some work done. I'd like to go to the library later. I might brave the rain again. So I effectively spent all of today working away at the second round of structural edits on my novel Theodora's Tea Shop. It's a really boring kind of process. It's very tedious. It's very time consuming. You're going back and forth through the manuscript a lot. So I was really excited to actually get out of the house in the afternoon and head to the library. Because I was sick for a few weeks, I hadn't really been going out all that much, so it was nice to finally get out and about now that I was well enough to and get out of my house and go sit somewhere else. So yeah, the process for editing a novel like this, it takes a long time, it is quite tedious, and basically you just have to know your work really well, especially when you're going back and forth, kind of teasing out and refining the pickiest little bits, which is what I'm doing at the moment. For the novel, I didn't really actually ever have that much structural stuff to change because I already did so much structural work with my agent before we went on submission. So essentially essentially the editing process on the novel with the publisher has just been these really small refining bits and pieces. And a lot of people have asked me, how much power do you have as the author over the edits? Like, what if the editor asks you to do something that you don't want to do? And here's the thing, that happens all the time. I've been really lucky because everyone I've worked with through the editing and feedback process, everyone has been amazing, so clever. They all have such good eyes for storytelling. But even if you work with the best and most wonderful people, there's still going to be things where you as the author don't necessarily agree on everything. And one of the really unique things about writing novels is that you as the author have absolute authority over your work. Like, the editor can't really force you to change anything that you feel really strongly about. But the thing is that if you want to get the very best out of the editing process, you're gonna take on feedback and you're gonna do your best. So for example, in this second round of structural edits, there was a particular scene that my editor said, this is superfluous, we don't really need it, let's cut it. And I was very attached to this scene for a few different reasons. It wasn't really a kill your darlings moment. It was a moment where I felt like this scene was really vital for the world building, for setting the tone of it. I knew that my agent loved this scene. I knew that Tyler loved this scene. I loved it. It was one of my favorite parts of the book, and the editor asked me to cut it. I ended up going away and doing a bunch of brainstorming and finding something else in the text that I could relate back to this scene in order to make it more relevant to the text. And so essentially I added a character into this scene, and that was how I problem solved it. I love editing and I love iteration and I love feedback and going through this process because now that scene, I get to keep it, I love it, and it's a lot more relevant to the actual rest of the story. And so editing really is just going back and forth, refining, doing little bits and pieces, and just doing your absolute best to make the best book that you can. It is, however, a lot of pressure as the author to know that kind of everything really rests on you. So even though there are all of these suggestions from the editor, it's up to me to do all of the decision making to be like, okay, is this what's best for the book? Is this what's best for the book? How do I fix this? How do I solve this? And so intellectually, it's quite overwhelming. It's really hard. And this edit was incredibly difficult because for so much of it, I was ill, I had brain fog, but now as I do this voiceover, the edits are all submitted and my editor is really happy with them and all of it worked out in the end. But it was a bit of a trial getting the second structural edit of Theodora's Tea Shop done. Hello, we're all back now. I was originally going to stay out and have a bit of a chat to you out in the rain and try to make something a little bit cozy and fun and lovely, but it is pelting down with rain. Today we're covering this topic of creative trauma and rejection and chasing your dreams. So I wanted to share with you guys today a few anecdotes and to speak about what this topic means to me and why it's important. Now, a little bit of oversharing for the channel today. I have done trauma therapy before, so when I say trauma and I'm linking this big bold psychology word back to the concept of creativity, I'm not doing it because it's just like a buzzword. Like, I know trauma is a really significant thing that many, if not all of us, go through at some point in our lives. We have these things called big traumas, which can be like large scale events, really life altering things. And we also have smaller traumas, which are the kinds of like daily traumas that we tend to collect and tend to sit with us, and we don't really tend to notice them, but they do have a really big impact on our lives. And these little traumas are very common and we experience them all the time. They can be something scaring us. Say, for example, if you're rejection sensitive, it can be many different times throughout any given social interaction. I am rejection sensitive, so I've had to put a lot of work into coming away from social interactions and giving myself pep talks to be like, no, you're not weird. But anyway, I got onto this topic of creative trauma because about 2 years ago, I started doing the artist's way. I'd seen so many people talk about it, bit off so much more than I could chew at the time. I was querying, we were in New Zealand and then America, I think, during that time. I did like half of it and I abandoned it. I've been planning for ages to come back to it, and here we are, and I'm speaking about the artist's way again because there are a few little bits in the beginning of this book that I think are really relevant to this conversation. There's this line in the artist's way on page 14 which says, the sensor is part of our leftover survival brain, something that is quite commonly done by people who don't know where to get started or they find themselves creatively blocked really easily. It's not necessarily that you don't have ideas, it's not necessarily that you don't have time, it's that you're coming to the blank page in whatever medium it is, whether it's writing, whether it's art, whether it's video production, whatever it is, but that sensor part of your brain is coming in and stopping you before you even get started. So when it comes to creative trauma, rejection, and chasing your dreams, I think it's really important to come back to this fundamental thing that we all have, which is shame and creative shame, and the way that these little traumas come in and inform our subconscious and stop us before we even get started. Now, I've spoken a lot about the concept of writing the draft of your story. And this is something that's really, really helped me. I do this for articles, I do this for essays. I've done this since university. And it's not just like me being like, oh, you know, it's okay if it's not perfect. No, I'm telling myself it's supposed to be bad, because I am a chronic perfectionist. I'm a chronic overthinker. I'm the kind of person that wants things to be done in a certain way when it comes to my creative stuff, and that is so incredibly detrimental to creativity. Not because you shouldn't work in the way that suits you or in the way that works for your psychology, but because some days are not going to be perfect. Today has not been perfect. It's bucketing down with rain. My brain feels a little bit fried. I'm so overworked at the moment from all of the book stuff, and I'm here and I'm making a YouTube video anyway, and I'm not going to be perfectly spoken in this video, and that's going to irritate me, and there's going to be little things that are going to like not be perfect, and that is fine. I think it's really important when it comes to being creative to really accept that nothing is going to be perfect, no matter how good you are at it. Even now with me working on Theodora's tea shop, I know the final book is not going to be perfect. I physically don't have time. I don't have the next 10 years to spend editing that book. Right now I have 2 days to finish the structural edits of that book, and whatever the structural edits are going to be by the end of these 2 days, that's what the structural edit is going to be. But there is always going to be a finite time that you can work on a creative endeavor, and if there's not a finite time, it means you're never going to get it done, which means you're never going to get to share it with anyone. So it's all well and good to have these strategies to try and push through the blank page anxiety, to push through those little like awful thoughts that come in when you're trying to work on something and your self-confidence is not very good. But I think what's incredibly helpful is to take a step back and to really delve into where did those negative beliefs come from, because they play an extremely important role in creativity. Creativity is something that comes from, I'm going to sound really like airy-fairy for a second, I'm sorry. It comes from the soul. It comes from a really fundamental, vulnerable part of ourselves where we're basically collecting the sum total of everything we've ever seen and everything we've ever felt and everything we've ever loved, and we're putting it back out into the world for others to consume in order to connect with others. So I do think it's really useful to try and delve into what exactly it is that gives you blank page anxiety. Exactly what is it that gives you the creative trauma that might be stopping you from writing or from making art? And I think that core negative beliefs play a really, really big role in this, and that is why I bring up shame. There's a quote from page 68 and 69 of The Artist's Way that I wanted to share. Art opens the closets, airs out the cellars and the attics. It brings healing. But before a wound can heal, it must be seen. And this act of exposing the wound to air and light, the artist's act, is often reacted to with shaming. Bad reviews are a prime source of shame for many artists. The truth is, many reviews do aim at creating shame in the artist. Shame on you. How dare you make that rotten piece of art, or writing, or YouTube video, or Instagram post, or whatever it is. For the artist who endured childhood shaming over any form of neediness, any type of exploration, any expectation, shame may kick in even without the aid of a shame-provoking review. If a child has ever been made to feel foolish for believing themselves talented, the act of actually finishing a piece of art will be fraught with internal shaming. And I read that and I was like, oh my God. Wow, that final line kind of kicked me in the teeth a little bit because I think there's so much in this for so many of us, and I think it happens in part because it is quite challenging to become a professional writer or to become a professional artist. So for some of us, when we share what we want to do when we grow up, we have these adults come in and say things like, that's not realistic, what are you doing, why would you try to do that, that's ridiculous, that's silly. And I think that kind of shame layer for many of us comes in from a very early age, and then it stays through when we're an adult trying to make art and looking at a blank page. The biggest dream of my life is to publish a novel, and it seems like I keep doing this thing where I don't actually think this is real. It's going to happen next year on July 28th, 2026 when Theodora's Tea Shop comes out, and I that book is finally going to be on shelves and it's going to be so exciting. But I also, like many of us, I had those negative voices come in when I was really, really young. I mentioned before that when I was in high school, I had a librarian tell me not to bother going to university because the types of kids that I went to school with, my school was a very low socioeconomic school, and like barely anyone was going to uni. Or I also have another anecdote which I shared in the submission video where I was working my retail job when I was 16, and a customer asked me, are you in school? Like, do you plan to go to university one day? Because I was being interrogated. Again, low socioeconomic place that I was working. Most of the people that I worked with like didn't go to school. And I was honest and I said that I wanted to be an author, and I got laughed at so terribly. Like, this woman cackled at me. It was so nasty. Oh my God. It's fucking miserable. Also, she gets zoomies when her fur is wet, and she sounds like a baby gargoyle. She is a bit of a baby gargoyle. See what I mean about things not being perfect? I feel like me trying to make this video and having all these noises in the background, even 2 years ago, I think this would have absolutely ruined me. But I've come to learn, I think, that it's so much important to make things that are genuine and honest as opposed to making things that are perfect and polished, if that makes sense. So it's the type of thing where you basically just have to sit down, interrogate exactly where these thoughts come from, and intellectualize them. So I want to thank Mabel here for hitting home about this theme and about this topic. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being exactly the same as your favorite content creator, author, artist, whomever it is. It's about being yourself. It's about making something honest and genuine. It is very much about the journey, not the destination. And this is the type of thing I'm also exploring in Spiegel Tent, which is the book I'm working on after I finish Theodora's Tea Shop. Art shouldn't exist to serve you. Writing shouldn't exist to serve you. It should be something that you give to the world. It should be something that you do for the sake of doing it, not necessarily so that it can make you money or so that it can give you all of this success. I think art and creativity is a fundamental part of the soul, no matter who you are, no matter whether or not you're a professional. And so I think having this layer of shame and trauma holding you back is absolutely silly and ridiculous, and there's no point to it, because all human beings on some level are creative and deserve to have that kind of creative exploration to make things. And now I'm just talking in circles, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Rejection is a fundamental part of this, and I think what's most important is coming to the blank page with the intention to be honest and to make something that you love and to make something genuine and to basically say fuck what anyone else thinks. Whether or not someone else will love this book or love this piece of art or will think it's good or will think it's bad. I think what's really, really important is to focus on the making of the thing first and then worry about all of that other nonsense later, which is to say to not really worry about it at all, because rejection's going to come anyway. Whether or not you're successful, rejection is going to come. Did you have a nice walk in the rain? Hi, puppy. So I just did a wind down meditation, and that specific one, which is called winding down and switching off, is really nostalgic for me because I always pick the same ones. I love that one. It's the one I tend to listen to at the end of the day, kind of like mark the end of the day. I don't know if you guys have ever done meditation before, but even like when you're really, really stressed out, if you just sit there and do like a body scan and just basically pay attention to each part of your body, like moving through, like imagine like a photocopier is scanning you and just do from head to toe. I find even doing that when I'm really, really stressed, especially if I'm out in public and I can't like take a minute to take a beat, I find that that's incredibly helpful for me because I am self-employed. I do spend all of my time in the same 1-bedroom apartment, so it's kind of nice to help bookend my day. Thank you guys for coming along with me on this writing vlog, this Theodora's Tea Shop vlog, this kind of dull editing vlog. I don't really have very much to share in the editing vlogs. It's just the same thing. It's just me staring at my computer, writing little fiddly bits. I can't sit there and say, oh, I wrote X number of chapters. I can't sit there and say I wrote 2,000 words, because basically it's the same fiddly stuff, and part of the editing process is sending me insane because you start the process and you have a book and you end the process and you have a book, and progress on the book is almost impossible to discern at this fiddly stage because the words go up a little bit and you delete a lot and then the words keep going up anyway, and we will get to the end of the structural edit is what I'm saying. But anyway, I'm glad you guys came along for this vlog today to hear my rambles on rejection and creative trauma and chasing your dreams anyway and making the thing anyway and finding value in art and creativity. Even if it does get rejected, there's still value from it. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I'm exploring in my next novel, Project Spiegel Tent, which I'm hopefully going to go back to writing next week or the week after. Before I go, I did want to say a massive thank you to everyone over on Patreon, because without Patreon I wouldn't be able to make these videos. Over there we have a whole bunch of bonus content, my book club, my Discord server, so many things over on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description down below. Please feel free to pre-order Theodora's Tea Shop, and if you can't pre-order it, add it on Goodreads or Storygraph. It's going to be out on July 28th, 2026. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.